Can I ask Aggie, how did you, come into being part of this? And can you, give us a little bit about, I guess, a little bit of insight into how Black Leaders sprang, from your angle?
Sure. I'm going to go back a tiny bit before Black Leaders and just sort of say that I do believe, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that a lot of action has to start from us. It has to start from us. And yes, I believe we shouldn't have to, and things should be equal, but they're not. So I think we have to almost take ownership of things. And I think that if there is one piece of advice or a plea I'd have to all people and all Black people as well is, you are empowered. We all have power, and we all have a sphere of influence that we can make a difference in. So I'll start there. And then I'll move on to say, in terms of Black Leaders, when I saw a LinkedIn post that Paul had sent, so we were already connected, and it talked about the fact that, it's time to make a difference. I'm paraphrasing, it's probably worded a lot better than that, but it's time to make a difference. Things have been going on like this for too long, and we need to do something. And I thought, yes, we do need to do something. So I got in contact with Paul, and my involvement sort of came from, there was this this VC, the video conference, where we had so many, I think about 40 or 50 beautiful Black people and allies as well, talking about Black leaders. What could it be? What could we do? And what I sensed and saw was a lot of passion and desire and, all these amazing professionals on one screen, which for me was just like a coming home moment. I've always worked in corporates, and I tend to be the only, or there may be, a couple of other brown faces in the room, but, not very many, especially as I've progressed in my career as well. So sort of looking at a screen with lots of beautiful brown faces and friendly allies, I thought, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But anyway, that was my personal journey. So coming from that, like I said, lots of energy, lots of passion, I guess Paul and I then had a conversation afterwards around, how do we make this passion, we know there's a want, we know there's a need now from this conversation we've just had. How do we make it have longevity? How do we make it last forever? How do we make it reach more people? And how do we grow this? Because the passion is there. And I guess my where I came in, which is my professional experience, was around that sort of structure, that vision, that, what are we trying to achieve in 30 years' time, when the three of us, or the whoever many have walked away, or the founding people have walked away? What will Black leaders have done? What will Black leaders have left as a legacy, and how does it carry on? So I guess that's where I became more involved around that structure, that vision, that bringing it together. And since then, really, I think, the three of us have just, like Paul has said, we're all volunteers, we're all doing this on top of our families, on top of our day jobs, on top of our businesses that we're also growing. But it's just, that energy, bringing it together and delivering something tangible. And, we've got some awesome, exciting stuff, which we might talk about on the call, or we might wait till the 22nd. We'll see what happens. But there's so much exciting stuff that has happened in the last 3.5 months. And, and I'll say the same, almost, that the others have said as well. My brother from another mother, my sister from another mister, Fiona and Paul, it's been absolutely amazing, and long may it continue.
It's a beautiful thing. Fiona, can you tag along, from what Aggie has actually said, and why Black leaders for you? Why did this come about?
Very similarly to what Aggie's mentioned, so I'll add on some other perspectives. So for me, there's the fact that, and Paul's also mentioned this as well, there is no go-to place. And for me personally, and it is a personal perspective, is I am tired of other people speaking for Black people. Right. Having decisions made by other people that don't look like me, having decisions made about me, not with me. I am tired of it. And we often have our voices just completely removed in everything, in different ways, be that in the workplace, be that about decisions about health, be that about decisions about education, be that about decisions about absolutely anything. And when I look at it from a political point of view, from a government point of view, and, I see often we lean into some of the same faces from a Black perspective, but we're not really getting a much broader understanding from a much broader Black audience. So it's great that we have some fantastic role models, some fantastic people doing some really great stuff. But what I want to see is I suppose, an organisation, for want of a better word, that can represent as many real Black voices across a different spectrum of the UK that covers all of these different areas, that starts to shape the agenda for Black inclusion by Black people, for Black people, and have organisations, government, whoever, official bodies, leaning into us to actually get that voice, those different perspectives on what needs to be done, but also providing answers. So again, we talk a lot about lots of different things. So just give an example, as we see lots of things around boards, representation on boards, we just don't have enough Black people on there, or other wider ethnic minorities. We don't see, we have a challenge across the whole of UK PLC that, people get to a certain level and they don't get any further. And lots of assumptions are being made, but nobody has ever asked a wider population of Black people as to what those lived experiences are from their perspective, as to why the situation is the way that it is. So we see in workplaces, for example, people with the best intent doing the best things, but nothing's really sticking because, again, it's done for us, to us. We ask a handful of people and then that just assumes that the world's okay. So for me, Black leaders is all the things that Paul and Aggie have mentioned about that legacy piece, but it's also about this impact and providing answers to exam questions that are answered by the very same people that are feeling it in terms of the impact, or feeling it in terms of the exclusion, in feeling it in terms of all those different aspects where our voice isn't heard. And to be able to turn around and say, yes, we are doing these other things, but there's a big part of what we are about is the impact to drive change. I don't want to be having this conversation around this whole agenda in 10 years, 20 years, 30. I don't think I'm having it in my lifetime now. So, I'm with my nieces and nephews, who are either Black, mixed race, I don't want them to be having to go through what I thought I was clearing for them to go through that. So it is very much for me a mission to drive change and to move from the position that we are in, particularly for me in the workplace. It's all the areas are important, don't get me wrong, but for the workplace where a lot of our Black leaders are, it cannot go on like this. The status quo is broken. So, or needs to be broken rather. So we need to fix it. And the way to fix it is, yes, there's people coming together, but at the same time, there's got to be action that needs to be taken. The action needs to be taken sooner rather than later.
Right. And Paul, yourself, why Black leaders? Why?
Well, I think we've touched upon quite a lot of the points, so I don't want to be repeating the same as what my two beautiful colleagues are saying. But it's, what I find amazing is, since the death of George Floyd, well, I don't find the death of George Floyd amazing, but the tragedy of George Floyd, how many people that affected from the Black community, and how many people actually joined in to Black leaders and are working tirelessly, through our different initiatives. They're putting their spare time. We're all putting our spare time into this, but some people have very busy lives, and they're putting everything into what we want to achieve for Black leaders voluntarily. And so that tells me that there is a need for Black leaders. And one thing that's really, really important that I want to touch upon is that it's a very big north-south divide. There's lots of initiatives going on down in London for Black inclusion, but it's still not happening. So we really want to make it so it's a national thing. So whether you're based in Leeds, Manchester, London, Plymouth, or up in Scotland, there's something there for everybody. That they can feed into, and that's what Black leaders is really all about. for our communities. You know, it's really important that we get our role models in our communities, and we also get, you know, corporates involved. We also get the education and teachers, you know, clued up upon, you know, what Black leaders are about and what the lived experience is for Black people in the UK. For far too long, we've been marginalised and put in the acronym of BAME. But, you know, BAME can be construed as, as, you know, you've got the Asian, you've got the Chinese, and you've got the Black and various other things. But Black is often at the very bottom of the pile when it comes to the inclusion stats. And I know it's from the inclusive top 50. So they might have high BAME stats, but what is your Black inclusion? And that's why our colleagues have been working on various initiatives to address these very things through Black leaders. And it's really, really exciting. And we've got some good companies that are working with us as well as individuals like yourself. And you're one IK, that's one volunteer that have put your time to interview people from all walks of life to sit down and showcase them about their lived experience. And so, you know, we really thank each and every one for doing that and taking your time and passion for change. And we are all in this together. It's not just about me, Aggie, or Fiona, or yourself. It's everybody as a family coming together to make that real change for the better, as you said before, for our children, for ourselves, and for everybody else moving forward.
You mentioned about initiatives, Paul. What I guess what initiatives are going on with Black leaders?
Through our teams, and this is, like I say, this has been through our work streams from the 120 people that have been under us. You know, we come up with these different initiatives. So Black Inclusion Week is amazing. What Aggie's done, and I'll let Aggie talk about that. I'll talk about my own. We've got a communities program, an empowerment and leadership program that we've done, which we're so close to get accredited by a university, which will then go into as a qualification that can be led to more employment opportunities for Black people across the UK. The university is basically said they're going to do it, so we just need to look at what that looks like. And this is, and we want to be able to do it almost for free for our communities, so we can empower them, and then they can go on to leadership courses, and then that can also go into their degree credits as well. So that's an amazing opportunity. We've got we've got education toolkits coming out. We've got workplaces. We've got so many. And as Aggie said, we've only 3.5 months in of volunteers that are just giving 1 or 2 hours of their time. Some more, some less. But it's amazing what we've actually come up with. And we also got Black Inclusion Index as well. But we've also got a global organization that is helping develop that, a data company. I'm not mentioning any names yet. You'll have to tune into the 22nd to find that out. But yeah, it's amazing.
Aggie, please, tell us a little bit about the Black Inclusion Week.
Sure. I think it's really, really important. I think everything we've spoken about so far is, very close to our hearts and we're very passionate about. But what we're very keen to make sure we don't do is make it feel like, it's all doom and gloom, or it's all, being Black is so horrible or hard, because it's not all of those things. There are some challenges. There are some things that we have to overcome. Yes, absolutely true. And we've got Black Inclusion Solutions, Fiona, to support that. But what Black Inclusion Week is about it's an observance event, which is around celebrating Black people in the UK, and we're very specific that it's the UK, and Black people everywhere are awesome, but we want something that's about us as a people. It's recognizing all the progress that has been made, which is great. It's also amplifying Black voices. There are so many of us, so many awesome people doing awesome things who have overcome lots of different things and, still made it, who we feel we should be amplifying and speaking about. So Black Inclusion Week is about that. Black Inclusion Week is also about celebrating. I love being Black, absolutely love it. I think we're such a vibrant, beautiful, multifaceted, deep people. So it's about celebrating us as a people as well. And then it's also keeping that conversation alive, because I think all of us on this call, and most people listening, I'm sure, will agree that in the last sort of 5 months or so, maybe a bit, actually 4.5 months, looking at the date, we haven't spoken about Black life experience, Black inclusion, disparities, as much in this last 5 months, sorry, the other way around, in our whole lives as we have in the last 5 months. The conversation is happening, lots of conversation, lots of soul searching, lots of reflection that is leading now to action, such as Black leaders, such as other things as we've seen out there in society. And we want to also keep this conversation alive. So Black Inclusion Week is that annual event. We've got Black History Month, which is also beautiful, but Black Inclusion Week has a slightly different lens to it, the celebration of now and who we are now and where we're going in the future as well. And then there's also an element about us as a people healing. So we do have healing to do, you know, as individuals, as communities, as families, you know, so much healing. How do we make that happen? I could talk about this all day, but I won't. But you know, how do we make that happen? And then also having that collaboration, because, you know, yes, we are clear that we need to lead this, but we're leading it, not doing it all by ourselves. So how do we bring allies on board? Allies, you know, corporate allies, individuals as allies, you know, educational establishments as allies, community establishments as allies. How do we support them to, you know, include us? So, like I said, I could talk all day, but I will stop now.
That's brilliant.
And then I'll touch on education as well, but I won't say too much because obviously we've got loads to talk about on the 22nd. But again, in the educational piece, we do feel as though we have to start this conversation early. Ideally, people would start it in their homes when their children, with their children, when they're learning to speak, when they're learning to walk, they'd have these conversations. But in terms of our sphere of influence, we're looking at the educational establishments. So how do we support teachers to have those conversations with their white children or Asian children and Black children around what inclusion looks like, what it feels like. If a child comes to a teacher and says, this has happened to me, unfortunately, a lot of the experience is that teachers are either stunned and they're like, well, sort it out yourself, which is not the answer, or they try to dismiss it and say, oh, it's not that bad. You know, I'm sure they didn't mean it. And, you know, they called you this horrible word, but it's okay, move on. That is not the answer. So we are looking at how do we give those teachers those tools to deal with that in the right way.
Right.
Again, I could talk about that all day too, but I'll stop now.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And Fiona, what solutions? Or give us one solution that's
you guys are so cool. Solutions, I like it. So look, I don't want to go into again too much deep. I think all we're saying is to tune in to the 22nd of October. But it is really important, that event. So I am going to plug it. So please do, if you haven't registered, do, because that is where you'll find out a lot of all the stuff that we are talking about. There is a lot, but all good stuff that we're pacing ourselves with. We're not rushing just to get things through any door, but what we really want to do is make sure we address some of the key challenges that are out there. So one of the things that I'm leading is around all things workplaces, and one key component of that is around the index, the Black Inclusion Index. Now, if I just summarize that to say that, you know, when we look at what happened in terms of how this all started and what companies were doing, what it also revealed was actually what companies weren't doing. So in terms of Black inclusion, so the whole Black Index piece is very much around holding that mirror up to organizations to actually help them to look at, well, what do we need to do? What do we need to move from? And what do we need to move to? And the index will look at various aspects in the workplace where Black inclusion is really important. So literally from, you know, employee life cycle, how we hire, how we recruit, how we do our talent, board level, what does that look like? And, you know, hopefully now, as well as, you know, providing that mirror, that benchmark stroke index, at the same time being able to give us as Black leaders the support to these organizations to actually enable them to move the dial as well. So it's not just this is where you need to be. It's also about, but we can also help you to get to where you need to be as well. And I think that's really quite important to understand. I think that what we are seeing in a lot of workplaces is the fact that, you know, what it has opened up is where Black people are not. So we know that we are not in those senior positions, but we also know that we're not even considered in other, aspects within the workplace. So it's really very important for us to be able to really understand what that picture looks like and to be able to provide evidence. So we are very much also about an evidence-based organisation to help organisations to understand their pain points, but also importantly the challenges. So that's what I'm going to say there without revealing too much. But what I do want to add is that, I know Paul and Aggie have mentioned this, but I really want to emphasise this as well. This work that we are doing and all the other things that are shaping up behind the scenes would not be possible without the number of individuals who are working with us, who are leading some of this great stuff, who are the creators, the idea makers, the solution inputters. I cannot thank those individuals enough who have made it so much so that, yes, we've all, we've done, it's created the platform, but now this is about our Black leaders shaping the things for Black leaders, our supporters, our allies. It is amazing, and we wouldn't really be able to have done what we've done in a short space of time without those individuals. So yes, so despite our blood, sweat and tears behind the scenes, it really is down to a lot of those people as well. I just want to give a shout out and thank them all.
That's awesome.
Can I just add to some of the points as well? So yeah, I completely agree with you, Fiona. But one thing that I feel that it has been wrong since George Floyd is we had a lot of people talking about Black inclusion when George Floyd passed away. Then all of a sudden it gets watered down again by BAME or
Correct.
Right.
And it's frustrating as a Black person to go through the same thing that we've been through for many years, and it needs to change.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
We don't need a race inclusion index. We don't need any other things like that. We need a Black inclusion index to monitor what Black inclusion is like, because we know what race inclusion is. It's the same as BAME. It's the same. You're going to get the same figures as you have for 10 years ago. The problem is Black inclusion has been left behind, and this is why it's important for organisations to really get behind
Correct.
this. And
so true.
And get behind all the initiatives so that there is fair and fair treatment of Black people within the UK, within our education, within the communities, within the workplaces, so that they are in the conversations rather than left out the conversation.
Correct. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's, it's so important, and I think that's the challenge. Why, a big part of why the situation is the way that it is because, for a long time we've been classed as a homogenous group of people, and that's also undermining the other people that are also within that homogenous group, because we're not actually getting a true lens of anything really. But from a Black perspective, absolutely, even now currently it still frustrates me when I'm having conversations with organisations who are saying to me, I want to do something, I want to address Black inclusion, but what we're going to do is we're going to do it all together with BAME, and I'm saying, then you're not really addressing Black inclusion, we don't want to upset anybody, and said, but you should be looking at all the different components, not just as one overall. So I think, the index is for us a new thing, because no one has done anything like this to get that Black voice, that Black perspective, and no one has really looked at it in terms of purely in that lens, that true index in terms of all those different areas that it will cover. So for us, and I do say us as a collective, not just us here, but much broader, it couldn't be more important in this time. It really couldn't.
Right. And in regards to time, Aggie, why now? Why now?
Well,
nice segue.
Why now? Well, I feel like it should have been always, actually, is my answer. to that question, it should have been always, but you know what? We are where we are. But I think the now piece and why we've got all this energy, because all of us have been in this place for a long time where we want to do something. But I think when you look at how Black exclusion can lead to the death of a man being knelt on for almost 9 minutes. People are watching, people are looking at it. There's lots of people around who could have easily pushed that policeman off, but they didn't. That policeman felt it was okay to do that. That just shows you how broken the system is. I won't even say was, I'll say is, where somebody can do that. You couldn't do that to a dog. People would push you off that dog. You wouldn't think it was okay to do that. But the system that we live in meant that it was okay. That person felt it was okay to do that. So I think us as a people seeing that was brutal. It, I think, made us open up wounds that we have probably tried to mask and plaster over. It just opened up those wounds. But I think of that, I almost see like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Quite dramatic, I know, but that's what I'm seeing right now. It's like a phoenix rising from that. When you hit rock bottom, you've got nowhere to go but up. And I think for a lot of us, certainly from my experience, this dam of, as in water dam, of stuff just broke and it all came out. And then I think everybody was in that position. So like, right, we've got to do something now. We can't let this carry on. But also for people who are not Black, it opened up their eyes to how bad the system was. And I do sometimes still question myself, like, how did you not know? But it's okay, they know now, which is the important thing. So when you saw that piece around the protests, when you saw people asking questions, when you had white colleagues, white friends calling you and saying, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that bad, and tell me about it, as much as it was tiring, because you're sort of having your moment and you're having your grief of it. But I think that empathy, it just awoke so much stuff in us, where it was like, actually, let's do it. Let's go. And even now, I mean, if you look on Twitter, I'm sure most people have seen it with Pure Jim, Luton and Dunstable, with that tweet that went out. Oh, no, sorry, that Instagram thing that went out about, was it 12 years?
Yeah,
yeah. That post was sent last year, around the same time, Black History Month last year, that post was sent out. People saw it. They saw it, but there was no real reaction. But now the tide has changed. You can't do that anymore. You can't, we're not going to let things go. We've got allies who now are awakened to that is wrong, and they'll speak up. So I think, for all those reasons, now is, well, I can't say now is the time. I'm not sure how to say it. It should have always been the time, but we are where we are, and this is what we're doing now. And we've got to keep that momentum going, keep that conversation going, keep that energy and passion behind it.
Right.
Can I just add something as well that's also quite important that we haven't covered, is when we're talking about Black leaders, Black inclusion, and we talk about at the time, just linking back to what Aggie said that triggered this thought of really, is, we see across different aspects of business, government, wherever, and that we focus on something, for example, women on boards, gender, etc. But what we never do is we still miss off the Black aspect, so the Black female voice, and then we go even wider around Black male aspect, Black disability, Black LGBT. We don't really get that wider intersection. So I think, again, it's really important just to highlight that when we're talking about Black people, that is exactly what we are talking about, is the much wider aspects across Black individuals, to get these different aspects in that are so often excluded in the conversation. And if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be in the position, and I just use this particular example for the gender agenda, where I can walk into a room that's a female conference and I can count on one hand how many people of colour are in that room, and I can count on an even smaller hand how many Black people are in that room. So, it tells me that something in the narrative, when we're talking about other things, still doesn't include us. So, it's so important. I just wanted to highlight that, because one of the key things that we haven't covered, but I just think that's really important and really links into, again, that's something else that triggered the thought of, was what Paul was saying around the National Diversity Awards and how it covers all these different identities and aspects as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Paul, go on. You were going to say? Go on.
And the main emphasis to this is it's not
Yeah.
about black people taking over. Some people might have that opinion. It's about just equality.
Yeah.
And just having
Includers.
opportunities that, and people might say, you do, or it's just not the case. The facts are there, as we knew from the educational stats, that basically, black people are more likely to be excluded from school quicker than the white colleagues, and actually go into prison. And it's through the lack of opportunities and job opportunities that when you go, even for the operational jobs within organizations, when you go to places like Liverpool, Manchester, everywhere else, it's the opportunities aren't there. And so you get a ghettoized place where people just, have nowhere to go. There's no opportunities. So it's time for change for that. Do you know what I mean? It's trying to empower the communities. It's trying to, change the narrative of education. It's trying to change the narrative of and come up with solutions for workplace. And just to have equal opportunities for all. We don't want to take over. We just want equality.
Okay,
absolutely.
Which is incredible. And with that being said as well, just to, I guess, basically land this beautiful plane that we're flying conversation wise. Aggie, have you got anything, and I guess any final passing words you want to leave the people watching with?
Yeah, sure. I think it's almost a reframe of what I said earlier, which is that, all of us have power. As individuals, we have power, we have a sphere of influence. If you're an ally, you have power to make a difference to somebody who is Black or maybe Asian or someone who's underrepresented in some way. And as Black people, we have power within us as well. We can make a difference. We can make a change. So whether that's joining Black leaders, do that. Or if it's something else, it's something, or whether it's something else, if it's, mentoring someone, or even, that kid who you see kicking a football past your door all the time, who probably gets ignored, probably doesn't get spoken to. Even just that simple, hi, how are you doing? Those types of things make a massive difference. Could speak about that all day. So I'll stop now, but I think I think everyone, we've all got power, but we've all got something that we can do, even if it feels small, it's probably huge to someone. So just go out and, like Nike says, just do it. Just go do it.
Awesome. Fiona, yourself, any last passing words?
I'll keep mine short and sweet, and I will just say to all the listeners, make this moment matter.
That's beautiful. I'm Paul. The last words with you.
Just join the movement, join Black leaders, and let's create change.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, and look forward to the 22nd for the Black Leaders launch. Take care.